Hello, I am Ivy the Occultist on YouTube and Instagram, and today we're going to do episode 2 of Let's Talk Spellwork. 2 months ago I had done episode 1, and then 2 months went by and here we are. So I'm here to make the second episode. Before we begin, let me just kind of give a precedent of what this series is all about. So in episode 1 we kind of talked about just random stuff. We talked about locations and events, dirt magic, energy hubs, and energy vortexes. We talked about liminal spaces. So if you're interested in that stuff, I will link it down below in the description box. But this series is kind of where I just get in front of my camera, and it's a super cozy chat, super informal, not scripted whatsoever, but I just download a bunch of spellwork ideas and a bunch of, hopefully, some inspiration for your magical practice. So this is kind of just like a chatty video. For my educational videos, I do have scripts for those because I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys some quality content. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything when I'm talking about a particular subject. So with videos like these, I can just kind of sit down and hang out with you and not have to worry about a script or anything like that. I do have a couple things that I want to chat about today, but whatever happens, happens. I'm just gonna talk and see what comes out. Oh, I did forget to get my tea though, so let me go get that. Okay, so today I'm doing a chai, the kind that like clears your nostrils. And I also put some Irish cream in there, so we're gonna get a little boozy in this video. I don't normally drink alcohol at all. I stopped drinking alcohol a couple years ago, but you know, like once or twice a year or something. I got this in a holiday gift. Somebody gave me some Irish cream and I'm like, well, you know, why not? So grab your tea or coffee or whatever beverage you like to drink, a little snack, and let's talk. And one more thing before we get started. I've already talked about a lot of this world building stuff. Towards the end of this video, I'm going to talk more about world building and inner temple work and all that. I've been talking about this quite a bit with my channel members on our Discord server. So if you're watching this as a channel member, all of this is going to be repeat. So just as a forewarning. So I kind of decided that today's topic is going to be somewhat centered around psychological triggers. And before I dive into all the things that I want to dive into, because I want to talk about mudras, I want to talk about audio signatures, I want to talk about some world building stuff with psychological triggers. This is all gonna kind of fall into classical conditioning. And if you're not familiar with what classical conditioning is in the psychological community, I think it derives from Ivan Pavlov. So if you have ever heard of Pavlov's dogs maybe, or something like that, it's this study where, I'm gonna really butcher this without a reference in front of me, but there was basically this guy and he had an experiment with dogs. He had bells and dog food and dogs. And so what he would do is when he rang the bell, the dogs did not salivate because they had no association with the bell ringing. But after some experiments of him ringing the bell and then immediately giving the dogs food afterwards, the dogs started to associate the sound of the bell ringing with food, even though they didn't have that association beforehand. And so what happens is that now with those dogs of that experiment, if you were to ring the bell, they would instantly start salivating because they have that, that trigger that's developed. They have this classical conditioning of associating the bell with food. And so the same idea kind of applies here, where we're talking about classical conditioning and how to get ourselves into altered states of consciousness or certain states of being when we do our rituals, when we do our spells or whatever, and it helps us just get there that much faster and quicker and more efficiently. Oh, that is so strong. Oh, I think I poured way too much in there. Anyways, so Pavlov's dogs is what we're talking about. Classical conditioning. This kind of leads into other psychological triggers like mudras, like audio signatures. So let's start with mudras though, and that pronunciation is probably not correct. It's probably more like mudra. Mudra. I can't roll the R very well. It's definitely not just mudra like with my American accent, okay? So just know that my pronunciation is not perfect. But mudras are specific hand gestures or specific postures that were typically used in more Eastern traditions or Eastern religions. If we're talking about Buddhism or Hinduism, I was a Buddhist for 5 years and I used mudras quite a bit. And what you would do is you would, well, in my case, how I used it. I don't want to speak for other people's experiences, so I'll talk about my own experiences. But you would have, let me set my tea down, you would have specific hand postures. You know, obviously people think of this hand posture when they think of meditation in Buddhism, and that's a mudra. So when you sit down to do your meditation, you have specific postures or hand positions that you put yourself in every single time you meditate, and you hold that until your body, until this classical conditioning takes place, to where every time you put your hands in that specific posture, whatever it is, it helps you get into that altered state of consciousness like you do when you're in a deep meditation for a significant amount of time.
Hey guys, it's Editing Ivy here. I am cringing at how I explained mudras in this video because I completely forgot to include the most traditional way to use mudras. They can be used during meditation and or pranayama to connect with different energy centers in your body. And in some traditions, each finger correlates to a different element. So like the thumb is fire, the index finger is air, middle finger is space or ether, ring finger is earth, and the pinky is water. And in other traditions, each finger relates to a different chakra or energy center, and so by positioning your fingers in a certain way, you can either enhance or diminish the qualities of those elements and the energy centers within us. But within my own tradition, from Zen Buddhism, I use them as psychological triggers, but not everyone uses them this way. But this is not an educational video on mudras, so I encourage you to continue your own research on this subject.
So let's say you meditate and you have a really hard time reaching deep states of meditation. Like, let's say you hit a light alpha brainwave state, but you can't ever get to theta or, you know, any of the deeper brainwave states when you're really, really deep into a meditation. These mudras can be really helpful because when you meditate for long periods, you can create that link, and then when you sit down again, say you only have time to do a 5 or 10 minute meditation, you may be able to get into that altered state of consciousness faster and easier by using specific postures or, you know, psychological triggers. So I use them a lot in my meditations, but I also started to use them in spell work in a really weird way. And let me know if anybody else does this. This is so chaos magician of me to do. I actually created symbols with my hands for different types of working that I do. So let's just take, I'm not gonna share, it's a very private thing for me, so I'm not gonna share my own symbols, but let's just take a protection spell, for example. Let's say you're gonna do a protection spell, and every time I do a protection spell, I have a specific hand gesture that I do for that working, or either as I'm getting into that state of mind, or even over your working, like placing your hands over that working and then doing that specific hand gesture to help you get into that right state of mind for protection specifically. So if you think of protection, maybe you think of like a brick wall or something, or maybe you think of like a forceful punch because you really want it to be a little bit more offensive rather than defensive, if that's your thing for protection magic or whatever. But you would have these like let's say that is your mudra, and I don't even know if that would technically classify as a mudra. This is where chaos magic comes in and you really start making weird things out of other things, but you can use these specific hand gestures. Have any of you seen The Magicians? To preface this, I actually did not care for the show. I think it was decent, but I just have other ones that are my favorites. But they use hand gestures a lot in The Magicians. When they do spell work, they do like the, you know what I'm saying? And so it's kind of like that. I use these specific postures and hand gestures for different types of workings that I'm doing, which sounds totally bonkers. I'm aware that that sounds crazy and it sounds a little like pop culture, I don't know, sounds like fantasy, but you know, if you do it consistently for every single protection ritual or for every single self-love ritual, you are performing some sort of classical conditioning on yourself, and it can be really helpful. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say about mudras, is that specific positions, and not even just your hands. I mean, we're talking about just positions in general. So you can have positions that you put your entire body into a specific position. You know, if you think about traditional meditation, the one thing that comes to mind is people are sitting cross-legged and they've got their fingers like this, right? That's the stereotype for meditation. But you could have your body in whatever specific position you want it to be in for a particular working and do that, you know, however it corresponds in your mind. And so that kind of leads me into auditory signatures or audio sigils. They're called different things by different people. And this, I don't know if you could consider this a sigil or not, because to me a sigil is an image, not necessarily a sound. I think that sound processes differently in the brain than images do, although, I mean, that's pretty debatable, right? So whether this is technically an audio sigil or an audio signature, I don't really know. I'm probably gonna put audio sigil in the title of this video just because it's shorter and I'll be able to fit more in the little tiny title box so people know what this video is about. But really, I think I would classify this next technique as an audio signature. And this is having some sort of sound signature assigned to your workings, whether it's a ritual, whether it's a spell, whether it's whatever, a type of shamanic journey or a meditation, some sort of auditory signature that you're putting on your workings. And I do plan on making a video about music and magic, but it's a video that is taking me a long time to write the script for, because that's such a huge topic about how sound affects us and how you can use sound in ritual. There's also the solfeggio frequencies. Did I just pronounce that wrong? Solfeggio frequencies. Anyways, there's just a lot to cover in that topic of how sound affects us and how we can utilize it in ritual. So I hope to get to that video soon. But I really like the idea of auditory signatures because you can create quick 1 to 3 note signatures for a particular working. Let's say, so a lot of people like to have, do I want to go down this rabbit hole? Yes. Okay. A lot of people just like to have signatures in their spells, period, whether it's auditory or not. I probably am not making sense right now, but bear with me, follow along with me. It'll make sense by the end, hopefully. So some people like to have a signature ingredient or sound or movement or something in their spells to really help bind that working to them. So a lot of people would use tag locks in their working to bind it to a particular person, and tag locks are like hair, nail clippings, saliva, you know, some sort of DNA of the person that you're doing the spell work on or for. So in most cases, when I do my spell work, it's almost always for me. I really don't try to manipulate other people's free will, although no judgments, like you do whatever you want to do. And so for me, instead of adding a tag lock, sometimes I'll add my hair or nail clippings, you know, things like that to tie it in with me. But I really like adding my signature. It's almost like the chef's kiss on the top of your spell work to really link it to you. It's something that you do for every single spell, every single ritual. There's one ingredient that I feel deeply connected to that I put in every single spell regardless. It doesn't matter what the spell is for. I always put my signature ingredient in it because it helps me feel like it's mine. You know, it's working for me. It's resonating with my frequency. And so you can do this with ingredients, of course, but tying it back to audio signatures, you can do this with sound as well. So if you have a specific humming sound or just a certain tone, I mean, you don't even have to do it with the sound of your own voice. You can use a tone on a singing bowl or whatever you want to do. You can use a bell and ring it a specific number of times. So the sky's the limit. You can really create a signature out of anything. But I think it's really important if you can use the sound of your own voice. Some people are not comfortable singing, but it doesn't have to be the most beautiful song ever. It can be something as simple as you know, like something very, very basic like that. And I'm not gonna sit here and chant to you guys. I'm not gonna put you through that. But I think it's an important thing to consider. And then you can start playing around with both, right? You can take mudras, you can take audio signatures, and you can create these concoctions for all these different types of workings you're doing. So going back to like a protection spell, let's say. That is way too much. That is way too much Irish cream. Okay, anyways, what was I even saying? Protection spells, that's where we were going. So you can start mixing the two together, and when you're doing a protection spell, you can throw in a specific mudra, specific positioning of your hands or body into the spell work. You can also add these auditory signatures, either the same one that you do for every single spell, or you can make specific signatures for particular types of workings like protection, love, offensive magic versus defensive magic. Those two things would sound very different to me personally. So it would be really interesting to create auditory signatures for both of those and see how they differ. But yeah, all just forms of different psychological triggers. And sometimes I feel like this goes so much deeper than just a psychological trigger. And I don't want to say just, because they are very, very powerful, but I think there's a little bit more to it that maybe we just don't quite understand yet. Let's bridge into a bigger topic. Let's talk about world building, because I've talked about world building before in one other video. It was the low energy witchcraft video that I did towards the beginning of starting this channel, I think. It's been months since I made that video, and I haven't really talked about world building much since then, so I kind of wanted to do a deeper dive into that today. We'll see how much. I've already been recording for a little bit, so we'll see how long this is. But let me give just like a brief general overview of what world building is before we talk about all the things that surround it. So world building is something that I came across in my meditations. I hadn't really read about it anywhere, and it was something that I was doing that I knew that someone else in the world must have been doing this too. I can't be the only one. And then when I posted that video, the low energy witchcraft video, there were a lot of people in the comments that say that they do this too, which made me so excited to talk about. And then I read some more books later on, you know, 6 months later, however long ago that was, and it seems that people call it different names, but it kind of all is the same thing. So world building can also be called building your inner temple, working on your mind palace. It is a technique that is heavy in visualization. So if you do not like visualization, you're not gonna like the rest of what we're gonna talk about right now, because it's pretty much all visualization. But you essentially go into an altered state of consciousness, of course, while you're meditating, and you are visualizing what the inside of your mind looks like, and you're building all these different doors that lead to different rooms, and it's a way to really isolate the particular energy that you're trying to tap into. So the example that I had given in that video was, let's say you are doing that protection spell and you need to build a protection room. So you would visualize your mind, whether it's a palace, whether it's a castle, a cottage in the forest, whatever your world looks like inside your mind, start building that up and making it look how you feel like it would look to match you, to match who you are. And then you visualize, you can visualize winding staircases, but you eventually want to get to a point where you're visualizing a hallway with a bunch of doors. And then each door could be different colored, they can have different doorknobs on them, and you open the doorknob, or you take the doorknob, you open it, push the door open, and you walk inside into this room that is built specifically for one intention. So for protection, let's say, you would spend time in your visualization actually painting the walls. You would paint the walls, you would hang up shelving, you would pick out all the little knickknacks that you want to put on the shelves. You know, it doesn't even have to be an indoor room. It can be an outdoor room. It could be an entryway into a totally separate forest. So it can really be whatever you want it to be, but the point is to spend time creating this room and really getting yourself connected to this room for that specific purpose. And that's why I put it in that low energy witchcraft video, because when you're exhausted and you don't have any energy to do spell work, what you can do is work on building your room. And what I love to do is actually, when I'm sitting in a ritual bath, that's my favorite time to do world building. I love sitting in a ritual bath and then just going into a visualization where I get to work on all the different rooms and go into construction mode, right? So I have a couple different rooms in my hallway that I use. And so how you would apply this is, if you were to sit down and do that protection spell, instead of doing a regular meditation, you would go into that room. You would use your visualization skills and walk down the hallway, open the door, walk inside, and sit in your protection room that you've already previously built up with visualization. And then while you're in that protection room, that's when you do your spell work for protection. So again, it's just kind of another form of a psychological trigger, but I feel like this is also a great way to move beyond your body as well. I don't think so. Okay, let me try to explain. So I have a bunch of different rooms, right? For different purposes. And I won't bore you with every single room that I have, But I have one room in particular that leads to Wonderland. And so, I mean, I have a protection room, I have a passion and a power room. So I have one that makes me feel really, really powerful when I want to get shit done. Or even, I use this example in the low energy witchcraft video too, but when I'm working out, I hate working out. Hate it. It is not my thing. But what I do is while I'm working out, I visualize going into that power and passion room of making myself feel really, really powerful. And it helps me perform better in my workouts. It helps me complete my workouts and actually, you know, do them. But anyways, back to Wonderland. So at the end of my hallway, I have this door that I open up and go through. I have to pass all the other doors to get to it, but at the end, it's this door that opens up into Wonderland. We have a little visitor over here. Loki, you wanna say hi? Loki, come here. Come here. Come here, come say hi to everybody. This is my handsome boy. Look at how cute you are. I just wanna eat your face. All right, back to Wonderland. What is Wonderland? So Wonderland to me is, it is a place that is boundless, endless. It's almost somewhere that's like beyond my mind. I'm now almost astral projecting. I mean, it's like this place where I'm in my mind, but slightly outside of my mind. And I'm also where other people can meet me. Does that make sense? There's a word for it and I can't think of what it is right now, but you're just slipping past the physical world, you're in the astral world, and I'm going just a little bit beyond the limitations of my own mind. So Wonderland really is this place where I don't have as much control anymore. It's not something that I'm really visualizing myself. It's something where there are other forces there as well that I can't control. And I don't mean that in a scary way by any means, but it's just this place that helps me get past my mind. And I hope that this is coming across easy to understand, but it's probably not. But this is where I work with magical entities. So if you've been around my channel for a while, you probably know that I love working with magical entities. I love working with servitors in particular. And if you don't know what servitors are, I've got a video on that. I'll link it down below in the description box. But they are essentially these magical entities that are created by the magical practitioner for a specific task. It's almost like having a servant, like a servitor, servant spirit to help you with your spell work, you know, whatever it is that you're trying to do. And so when I am going to construct or deconstruct my servitors, I really like to go into Wonderland. Or if I want to edit and make changes to a magical entity I have created, I will go into Wonderland and meet the magical entity there and do whatever kind of construction that I need to do. So let's say I have a servitor that I've been working with for a while and it's been somewhat helpful, but not quite as efficient as I'd like it to be. Maybe I want to make some edits to what they're able to do, or maybe I want to edit, kind of change them for, you know, change their purpose, so to speak. I want to completely change why I created them, but they've given me results and I don't necessarily want to destroy them. I just kind of want to change them into something else. So this is where I will visualize my hallway. I'll walk to the end of the hallway, open the door for Wonderland, and meet my magical entity there. And it's there that I will change everything about it. Sometimes I'll change its appearance. I will spend time changing its purpose, having conversations with it, and just bonding and spending some time with it. I mean, you can even meet your magical entities in Wonderland simply for the idea of spending time with them to really build a strong bond. But yeah, I think that the use of Wonderland is a really interesting thing. It's really given me some weird results. So if you love visualization, I would so love to hear everyone else's experiences if you try this Wonderland trick. And to get to Wonderland, it is a little bit deeper of a trance, personally in my experience, than the rest of the rooms inside of your mind, because the rooms inside of your mind are very much something that you have visualized and you have created, right? And then as you walk down the hallway, you get deeper and deeper into a trance, into an altered state of consciousness. And then when you get to the end of the hallway, you open that door and go into Wonderland. you're not even in your own mind anymore. You're somewhere further beyond that. So hedge witches would probably love this technique. So I'm curious to know your experiences. If you feel comfortable typing that into the comment box below, definitely feel free to do so, because I think it would be really interesting to read everyone's experiences. But yeah, that's just kind of what I had today for psychological triggers. I'm sure there's going to be so much more that pops up into my head as soon as I stop recording, but I've already been recording for a long time today. I've really been rambling quite a bit. So anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. I already know what I'm putting into Let's Talk Spellwork episode 3. That's going to be a completely different ballpark of magic. So stay tuned for that, I suppose. But I hope you have a blessed day. I'll see you in a video very soon. Bye.